Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 372 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels coming to you from Sandusky, Ohio, and thanks for checking out this episode. This is the next episode in my previews for the 2025 AFL season, and in just a moment, I'm going to be joined by my mate Deebs of the True Bloods podcast as we're going to preview his Sydney Swans for 2025. Now, don't forget, folks, to head over to my website, ayankonthefooty.com. And I do hope while you're there, you'll check it out. You'll read through some of the blog posts there, that you will also consider subscribing to the podcast. You can do that right there as well, so that when new episodes come out, they're in your inbox within about 20 minutes of the release time. I don't spam people's inboxes with a whole bunch of emails, things of that nature. But when a new episode comes out, I will share it there. Occasionally, when a new blog post comes out, I may put that there as well. But also hope you'll check out the links to all my socials at Yank_on X, a Yank on the Footy podcast on Facebook, a Yank on the Footy on Instagram. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel there as well. I do have almost all of the episodes, especially these new preview episodes, going up on both Facebook and on Rumble. I'm a little slower with Rumble because that one's just now getting up off the ground a little bit as far as the podcast is going over there for me. But I really enjoy highlighting these club-specific podcasts to share their love for their particular club and just get their take on where things are going to be going this year. So again, I do hope you'll head over to my website, get subscribed. And if you enjoy the podcast, I do hope you'll share it with your friends and family. And a huge help would be, while you're over at my website, take a couple of minutes. And if you enjoy the show, leave me a review. And if there are things that you think I could do better, and I'm sure there's certainly things I could do better. If you're watching on YouTube, I could make this face look better. Probably not, but I could give it a shot. Leave me a note there as well. Tell me about that. You can get on there and mention that to me there. You can leave me a note on my email at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. If you have somebody that would be a great guest for the podcast, somebody that maybe it's you, who is absolutely passionate about this game, that have a fantastic story to tell, I would love to hear it. Now, I love doing interviews. I love discussing the game and people's lives with them on the podcast, as I have started to say in recent times, come for the footy, stay for the life stories. Okay. Because my podcast interviews are always based on footy, occasionally cricket. But then there are so many different little avenues and roads that they head down, because I love sharing people's stories about the game and about their lives and why they love this game and what makes them unique as well. So I hope you'll check it out. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my chat with Deebs from the True Bloods podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with our next preview episode for 2025. And I am thrilled to be joined again this year by Deebs from the True Bloods podcast. And Deebs, you are here to talk about your beloved Sydney Swans. Thanks for coming on this morning, sir. How are you doing?
Yeah, going well, thanks, Craig. It's not too under a month now until the Swannies are back. We're waiting for it. It's been an interesting pre-season, coming off another grand final loss, unfortunately. Dealing with all those things in the media, the upset supporters, all that
Yeah.
type of thing. But under a month now, I think it's 26 days, and then we're back into it, mate. But cannot wait.
Well, I guess we have to let's deal with that elephant in the room here before we go on to anywhere else. Okay, two and I guess the elephant's there, but two rather significant grand final losses in the last 3 years. Now, I did not have a vested interest in the one last year. Well, I guess in a way I did, because Brisbane knocked out the Cats the week before or 2 weeks before. But you know, I know it's frustrating. But do you take any solace from the fact that there were 16 other clubs that would have traded spots with you?
Oh no, I wouldn't say I take any solace in it. It's once you get there, you want to win,
Right,
but
right.
you much rather be there than not there.
Yeah.
We had a sensational year last year, and obviously you compare it back to 2022. Yeah, we were young. We were probably a little bit of ahead of our time, coming up
Yeah.
against your boys, a really hard and experienced team. So you sort of see why that game went the way it was, the way it did, I should say.
Yeah.
But the one last year just kills the supporters. We know how hard it is to make grand finals. So much has to go right to get there. We won 19 games last year. We did everything we could, bar, probably play our best footy come the last day, last weekend in September. But it's frustrating. It really hurts the one last year just to get smashed like that in a grand final. It's a really hard pill to swallow. But at the same time, it's a fantastic year. I don't think our list has got too much worse or anything like that. I don't think we're getting old. I think
Yeah.
all the experience is there now, and hopefully we can saddle up and go again.
Okay. Now, I guess the main question we would have to ask is, in your opinion, how did things go in the first year post Buddy?
Really well, really well. I think we were the number one offensive team last
Yeah.
year. It is a funny thing that people sort of, when they question the Swans, it's always the forward line. You've got the three big boys up there. You got Marty, McLean, and Logan McDonald as
Right,
well.
right.
And it's an interesting forward line. They're not superstars, but with the midfield power we've got, that sort of seems to mask over what's going on in that forward line. But there's no doubt that one of those three has to stand up this year, and it's probably
Hmm.
not the best start with Logan still struggling with the ankle
Yeah.
and McLean having a delayed preseason as well with some groin issues, which I think he was carrying last year as well, which sort of makes a lot of sense why his output was down a little bit in that back half of the year. But someone's got to stand up in that forward line and kick 45 to 50 goals, and I think that just takes a little bit of heat off the midfield to hit the scoreboard so much.
Right. Well, and we know Joe Lombardi tried to do that in one game last year, but kicking those 45 go, what do you have? Did he finish with nine that game, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, kick
Yeah.
nine against the Crows, and
Yeah.
he
So
really dragged us out of a bit of a bind there.
I listened to that one. I was actually at a regional USAFL tournament. I was actually on the drive there listening to that one in the car on the way to that tournament. And, it just was like goal after goal after, I mean, it was just and then they pulled him out, you know, didn't allow him to kick a 10th. I mean, if he had kicked the 10th, would that have been considered disrespectful?
Yeah, look, it was an interesting game, but Joel's had that many problems with injury, especially when
Yeah.
he's under fatigue. So you
Hmm.
got to look at the bigger picture sometimes,
Right.
and I don't blame Horse at the time
Yeah.
for dragging him off, and you got to be cautious with these power athletes.
So, you got John Longmire stepping away from the club at the end of this last year. Um, do you think that we will ever see him again as a senior coach in the AFL?
Yeah, I think he probably will. There's
Okay.
no doubt about that. He'll go away for 12, 18, 24 months maybe, and then
Okay.
Tassie might look at him. You don't know what happens in AFL these days. Things can change pretty quickly. But look, my gut feel would say you'd see Horse somewhere. But
Yeah.
I think it's really good timing to him stepping away. I think he came back before Christmas and just didn't quite have the fire in the belly that you need after four consecutive grand final losses. And I think he had got every single little bit out of the playing group that he could, but ultimately couldn't get him across the line. And I really like how it sets up with Coxie coming in, Horse stepping away. Yet it's a pretty smooth transition. I don't think you see that too often in AFL, and
So,
hopefully that pays some dividends this year.
so what is yes, and he lost a handful of grand finals, but is that his legacy, or is his legacy having being a continually competitive club who was always in a position to be completing or to be competing for the flag, are people going to look first at the grand finals that he didn't win?
Yeah, we spoke about this, when it happened last year.
Hmm.
I think you sort of put John Longmire in the A category. He's not an A plus coach. He's not a Clarkson. He's not a Lee Matthews, but he's just that step under. But to be
Yeah.
as competitive as we were, 12 of 14 final series since he was in the job.
Right.
He's a sensational coach. And look, if we probably got one more of those grand finals, he steps up into that A plus category. But we put him in that A category, and I think that's how he'll be looked at, and he'll be a sought after commodity when he's ready to go for another coaching gig. But
Yeah.
we couldn't be happier with what Horse did for the Swans. He was sensational, and yeah, he's definitely thought of in a positive light.
Yeah. And you mentioned how this club is not really all that old. I mean, you've got by the end of this year, you're going to have three, six, you'll have seven players who are on the north side of 30. And,
Yeah,
Dane Rampy, being one of them, of course, Taylor Adams, who's been around forever as well. Brody Grundy, who, stays in pretty darn terrific shape, but you brought along a lot of youngsters, and you were still able to compete at a very high level. In fact, winning the minor premiership last year. So, I mean, that has to make you feel optimistic. But and you talked about it being a seamless transition between Longmire and Dean Cox, but are you worried at all about things shifting too much with Dean Cox taking over?
no, I wouldn't say worried. I think the
Okay.
biggest worry would be that the mental side of things after another grand final
Mhm.
smashing. But
Yeah.
I think we saw how we rebounded after 22. People questioned us after that. They said these guys won't be back. We had a very average start to 2023. That was due to injury. We just didn't have our best side out on the park. And then as soon as we did at the start of that back end of 23 and pretty consistent through 24, we
Yeah.
saddled up and went again. So you're always pretty optimistic, like you would be with the Cats. You've got the foundations there to be successful.
Yeah.
And I don't see this year as any different. Yeah, optimistic about the season, but a lot to play out, and you do need that bit of luck going through the
Right.
year as
Right.
well.
And you theoretically have the clubs that you're doubling up against, theoretically you have a tougher draw. But again, it's all dependent upon who's still are on those lists. You've got Brisbane, Port Adelaide. Of course, you've got GWS twice, but then you've got Fremantle, who a lot of people are saying could be a premiership possibility as well, if Sean Darcy's ankle holds up. But then you've got, the enigma that is Essendon, because you never know what you're going to get with Essendon. They may come out and play a phenomenal game, and they may come out and, help to prepare you for making an omelet because they've laid an egg or two.
Yeah.
So it's just, and then you've got North, who, I think North is going to be. I've mentioned in several of the preview episodes. My bold prediction for this year is that North is this year's Hawthorn, which is I think
Sure.
it's a little out there, and I've had a lot of people, even the North preview that I did, the North supporter that I had on that does a North podcast, they looked at me like, you sure about that? I
Yeah.
said, yeah, I just think they're ready. I think um with Clark go there, I think they're ready to take that next leap. Maybe even if he's not playing you know all 23 games, I think having somebody who's a bit of a hard-nosed player like Luke Parker coming in there to kind of show some of these youngsters, here's how you can bump a guy. Maybe you try to intimidate them or pretend they're crying or something like that. But you still certainly you could certainly bump into some people and play the game aggressively. Which these guys are still relatively young and are building up their bodies. And here's a guy who's had a long career of being a really really hard-nosed player that I think could help to teach these kids a few things or that maybe they've not had the opportunity to experience. That's why I think also bringing Kennedy in the forward line, while he may not score a lot for them, I think he's still going to take a lot of pressure off of Nick Larkey for them, and it's going to make Nick Larkey a better player, I think.
Yeah, the
So yeah.
Darling, I think you're referring to.
Oh, Darling, yeah,
But
not Kennedy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry about that. Yeah, Jack
Yeah, no,
Darling.
you're
Yeah,
good.
my
You're
bad.
good.
My bad.
Nah, yeah, look, yeah, I try not to read into other teams too much.
Yeah,
So much changes.
yeah.
Look, I always sort of see, look at what Frio's done,
Hmm.
recruiting bulk players, Bolton and what's his name? The other bloke from Richmond, who had a great season, good off
Is it
half back,
Liam Baker?
Liam Baker.
Yeah.
Yep. I find when teams go and recruit that player, it doesn't necessarily convert into premierships.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes a little bit to get the team going together, and you've got to learn how each other plays, and that takes time.
Right. Right.
Bit of continuity per se. But so I don't read into the Frio stuff too much. But yeah, I think North will improve. Whether they make the eight, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see all the off-season changes, and losing Luke Parker. That one kills Swan supporters, but
Right. Right.
at the same time, you understand the reasons why, but you do have to put the red and white glasses on sometimes too. And I wouldn't say I'm like a lot of Swan supporters who are, that send him on his way all merry. I'm a bit filthy that he's going to play his 300th game in different colours, and
Right. Right.
after a little bit of adversity last year, he decides to leave. I understand the reasons. Don't get me wrong. But once he did get back into that side, he played every game. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you do wish him the best. That there's I don't wish him anything negative, but at the same time, you're a bit filthy that he's not in red and white next year or this year.
Yeah. And that was his decision rather than the club's decision to have him to go to North,
Well, I think it's sort of,
or kind of a
because he
mutual
had been
thing.
such a servant for the club.
Yeah.
They were a bit, open to what Luke Parker wanted, I guess,
Okay.
and
That makes
being
sense.
played out of position a little bit. He's a hard-nosed midfielder.
Hmm.
Being played forward a little bit, and there's no doubt that he's probably had some disagreements with Horse, in that sort of 6 month period. Look, it's funny you look at it now. If Dean Cox was the coach, halfway through last year, would Luke Parker still be at the club? I tend to lean yes.
Yeah.
I think they sort of, I wouldn't say a falling out, but they probably had some disagreements. And when you're being played out of position, you got to look at what makes you happy, right? So
Right. Right.
I understand all the reasons, but I do have to worry about my club as well. So that's sort of how I
So,
see that one.
who are you the most excited about this year with the club?
There's a couple really looking forward to what Angus Sheldrick can do this year. Sort of, he was one that was tipped to break out last year, but just couldn't get on the park with
Right. Right.
injuries and all that type of thing. So, hard-nosed midfielder. We saw what he could do in a few games in 23. He played some awesome games. There was one against Brisbane at the Gabba where he hit the scoreboard, had 20 odd, and we really saw what he could do. So Angus Sheldrick's one, might be able to burst into that midfield, and all the talk is that Chad's brother Corey Warner
Yeah.
has had a ripping pre-season, in shape. He's given himself every chance to try and break into that side. So they're the two for mine that I'd love
Well,
to see
and it
break into this side.
and it sound it I looked as though there was a little bit of a clash between the two of them during training as well, which I guess that
Yeah,
happens with brothers.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, are you worried about are you worried at all about Chad Warner's expanding real estate portfolio?
Yeah, look, you it's funny. We on our podcast, we're sort of, you got to take the line of you can't worry about it this year.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the chat's going to be there all year. Nothing we do, nothing we say is going to change what happens.
yeah.
We literally have no control over
Right,
this.
right.
It's control the controllables. And look, there's every
That's
chance
true.
Chad leaves. There's every chance that Chad leaves. It's like whether we can match this. It's probably going to be 1.5 million plus to get Chad back over to the West. But
Yeah,
even if that happens, I think we'll be left in a really nice position with some nice draft picks or players or however that one works out. But we just got to hope Chad is, head down, bum up this year, and I'm sure he'll be doing everything to
yeah,
compete hard in the red and white in 25.
yeah. I just it's when you and you seem to see this more in, or I should let me phrase it this way. I don't notice it as much in sports here in the United States, the longing to go back home kind of a thing. The kid from Adelaide or the kid from um, Melbourne or Perth that's in Sydney or that's in Brisbane that wants to get back home again. That homesickness doesn't always seem to happen. But I guess I wonder, does part of that have to do with the fact that these young kids are getting to these clubs at the age of 18 or 19, whereas in maybe other sports they're not finding themselves on the other side of the country until they're maybe a few years older, where they've been out in the world a little bit more, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a good point. I've never really thought of it that way, but yeah, I think that you could draw a correlation between that's for sure. It's like how much you grow up between 18 and 21.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would make a big difference, but it just kills us in Sydney too. It's like I don't know if you know that the history of the cost of living allowance and all that, and how that all went down, a while ago now, and how we were
Hmm.
penalised, and just how much more expensive it is to live in Sydney and buy a house in Sydney. It's
Right.
the most expensive state in the country, and that's mainly we had Kinnear Beatson, who was our head recruiter for many
Hmm.
years, on the podcast last year, and he basically said that's the reason we lost Jordan Dawson is because what he could afford in Sydney compared to what he could afford back in Adelaide,
Uh-huh.
it was chalk and cheese, and wanting to set up a life with his family
Yeah.
and all that. It really comes into it, and I think that's a big reason for the go home factor when we talk Sydney anyway.
It almost seems like, and I don't know if this would actually be doable, but when you look at different communities, like for example, yeah, I don't know if you follow the NFL very much, but let's say you have your teams that are in Los Angeles and San Francisco or New York City, where those communities have some of the highest real estate prices in the country, which is kind of what you're alluding to with Jordan
Yep.
Dawson. Um, should they allow for some sort of like an additional allowance with regards, and again, in major metropolitan cities anyway, real estate's going to be expensive. I can't imagine it's much less expensive in Melbourne or even Perth necessarily. Then, Sydney may be the most expensive, but it's like 1A and then 1B, that kind of thing. So it's not a huge disparity, but it's enough. Could there be something where they just allow for just like a little bit of like a cost of living allowance or adjustment that allows players to be paid a little bit more at a certain club for the what like the rate of buying property or buying a home in that area happens to be, but then say should let's just say that Jordan Dawson has a contract that would have allowed him to purchase a home in Sydney, so he's getting paid, let's say he's getting paid X plus whatever X being the dollar value of that contract plus maybe another $50,000 a year to help cover defray the costs that don't go into the cap for purchasing a home. But then if he goes to Adelaide, where the cost of buying a home would be less, maybe he only gets paid X and not the X plus 50,000.
Yeah, well, this is what we did have
Oh, you did?
back in.
They
Yeah,
did do
we
that?
They did, and it got taken away. I encourage you to look at the history of what happened to the Sydney Swans with the cost
Okay.
of living allowance. It's
Okay. I
it's
didn't
very
see.
interesting.
I was just speculating. I didn't realize that it actually happened. Okay.
Yeah, we had
Wow.
it, and then we when we landed Buddy, all those years ago now, a lot went down and it got taken away, and we were penalised for something we were given. So
Was it
we weren't allowed to trade for 2 years.
was it because you had was it be and again I maybe in the last episode they referred to Vic Bias. Did they do that to you because you took one of the best players out of the comp out of Melbourne and brought them to a completely different state?
Now that they were filthy because they thought he was going to GWS with the startup and everything like that.
Oh, the league
So
was, and you
the
guys
league
you
was
guys swooped in and snatched him.
exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a book that someone wrote on it that has all the ins and outs on it. I'll find the name for you, but
Okay.
we could go on about it all day. But
Yeah, but
it really affected us for 3 or 4 years, and we were penalised for something that we were given.
how do
So
they how do they tell you that you can't make trades? That's
yep,
ridiculous. So
until our
if
salary cap came back down under. So, because it was like 3 or 4% per contract. That's what
yeah,
we were allowed as an addition, as a cost of living allowance. And then, yeah, it all
okay,
went down. But very interesting,
wow,
Craig. Encourage you to read into it.
wow, that I mean, that's again, I didn't know it happened, but I
Yeah.
can't see how they would penalize you for
Yep.
that. Just doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. So
Yep.
um, can it be? Let me see how I can phrase this question. Can a grand final defeat in 2025 still be considered a successful season?
Well, I don't think so. I really don't.
Okay.
Anything bar a premiership probably isn't considered successful.
Hmm.
But doesn't mean you can't enjoy the year. That's what I would say.
Okay.
Losing two grand finals in 3 years is
Yeah.
um, for supporters that aren't rusted on like us.
Yeah.
But we've seen a lot of retort from a lot of supporters. But if you're only going to see a premiership as success and you're not going to enjoy it unless you see a premiership, it's
Hmm.
probably not the game for you because you're going to lose a lot more than you win. But ultimately, we're in the window. We've got the side that we know can win a premiership.
Hmm.
We need to see it happen. But
Okay.
a lot has to play out. We know how hard they are to win. It's not like I'm going in expecting to win a premiership, but ultimately that's the goal, right? And that's what everyone has to set as the goal.
It's the whole why you play the game kind of thing. Yeah.
That's it.
So um, let me ask you this then. If by chance the league decided to apologize for penalizing the club many years ago when Buddy came over and they said, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and allow you to for just this one season, we're going to allow you to go ahead and poach one player off of any other list in the comp to bring him onto the Swans for this year. Who would you bring on board?"
Oh, it would have to be a forward. Uh, you'd have to go for, it's funny, you'd have to go for like a Charlie Curnow
Hmm.
or a Nick Larkey, someone like
Okay.
that. I
Okay.
reckon Nick Larkey's heavily underrated and in a better side with a powerful midfield. I think he
Yeah.
would just kick bulk goals.
Yeah.
He's that sort of size and, roams around that forward line. And same with Charlie Curnow. We've seen what he's been able to do for Carlton.
Right. Right.
It would have to be one of those two.
Okay. I had somebody ask me that question on their podcast a week or so ago as a cat supporter, and I went surprisingly. You and I are both, selecting a player from North Melbourne, which, if you stop and think about it, go back a year or two, nobody would have selected anybody from North Melbourne. But I told him I would have taken Tristan Sherry from North Melbourne,
Oh,
the ruckman, to come in and plug him into the middle of the cats, ground there. Reece Stanley
yeah.
is a serviceable ruck, but just
Yep.
having somebody that's young and dynamic that is going to win a lot of hitouts and hit the ball to advantage, I think would be awesome to have. And now I'm hoping we get that with I think Toby Conway. Hopefully he's his ankle's healthy and hopefully he can step in. But yeah, yes, I think that was Donnie Hess, who's also a Swan supporter. I went onto his show. He asked me that question, and I thought, you know what? I think it's a great one to ask. So Donnie, hat tip to you for asking me that one because I borrowed it from you there. So, um, what are the things that you're going to be looking for that you don't want to see that's going to be telling you, okay, this is not going the way I had hoped? What are the things you hope you don't see this year?
It's a funny one to say, but I just don't want to see us peaking too early. We saw it last year. Although it's great, we were sitting, around 14. I think we were 13-1 and, 3 games clear on top of the ladder. Where at the
Yeah.
time you're like, oh, this is great. We're the best team in the comp. But at the same time, it means nothing. And it's all about peaking for September, and I think there's a
Yeah.
lot more that goes into that. And I think they'll be looking into that. But at the same time, it's a balancing act. You still want to be banking games early, so the pressure doesn't come on towards the end of the year. It's like you saw it with Brisbane. It's like they were lucky in a lot of facets of the game. Those two
Hmm.
finals where they came from behind, even came from
Yeah.
behind against you in the prelim. It's
Yeah.
it's amazing how much luck they had, but they were just good enough to
Yeah.
get the job done. So yeah, it's a bit of luck, but I'm sure it goes into the planning and just keeping healthy as well. You just don't want to see all the injuries that we're
Yeah.
seeing. We've got the two I know of is Logan McDonald's not going to be playing round one, really struggling with that ankle,
Yeah.
and McLean as well with some hip issues, but. It's all about keeping healthy and peaking at the right time of year.
You know,
That's what
and
I
and
want
I
to see.
and I look at your results from last year. You guys lost 4 games by a total of 10 points. You know,
Yeah,
it's and so I mean but you did have that hiccup as you said there where you lost, what, 5 out of 6, and
yeah,
you had that one that was just that ugly loss that I don't think anybody saw coming when Port Adelaide just absolutely took you guys behind the woodshed.
yeah.
It just, and it's just, that was not, I think people might have tipped Port Adelaide to win it, but not by that volume.
Yeah,
So
I don't think anyone would have.
yeah,
It was the culmination of a lot of things. It was just the perfect storm. We had bulk injuries,
yeah,
and we just didn't rock up, and that's what happens in this league. It's so even. If you're a couple of percent off, you'll get taken to the cleaners,
yeah.
and I told this story on another podcast I was on, but Mads, who I do the podcast with, was actually at the Carlton Collingwood game. It was a Saturday night, and he was at the
Okay.
footy. And
Hmm.
I'm sitting at home watching the Swannies, and
Yeah.
he's sitting at the game, and there's murmurs going around the MCG. It's like it's 70-0 over in Adelaide, and the Swans haven't scored. It
Yeah.
was like, and he's just like he's on the phone to me. He's like, "What's going on?" And it's just. Yeah, it was an amazing thing, but I think that story, shows the resilience of our group because 8 weeks later we smack them by 6 weeks in a prelim and make a grand final. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what you have to read into. This group is resilient, and although they've had some kicks to the mouth, it's I think they're capable of turning it around and not letting it affect them too much mentally. And as I've said before, I think we'll saddle up and we'll go again this year.
So besides Chad Warner, you got a number of players who are out of contract at the end of this year. Who in your mind is somebody that absolutely the club has got to re-sign? Let's say you got 2 spots you absolutely say, okay, Chad Warner's just buying a vacation house. He's got an Airbnb. He's running a Verbo out in Fremantle right now. Okay, he's hiring somebody to fluff the pillows and put new towels in and that sort of thing. He's never going to be there himself because he loves it in Sydney. Knock
Yeah.
wood. But who are the 2 people that are out of contract that you think that this club has absolutely got to have back with you in 2026?
Craig, you'd have to list off the names. I wouldn't know who's out of
Okay.
contract. Have you got them
Okay.
there?
Well, yeah, you've got, players like, Robbie Fox, Lewis Melicon. Do you think this might be Dane Rampy's final year? Is he going to go, climb goalposts in other other venues?
I
Um,
think Ramp is a year by year proposition.
yeah,
If he can, keep the body going all right. He has had a few soft tissues, had a calf last year and a hammy, I think.
yeah.
But he's very important to what we do. Malikan's huge. I thought he signed an extension, but I might be wrong. But yeah, Malikan was huge for us last year. He would definitely be a priority. Anyone in
Hmm.
that back six is vital.
Yeah, here's the list right here. I think I've got it up on the screen for you right now. The off contract down there at the bottom of the page. Can you
Yeah,
see that?
well, James Jordan's huge. Sheldrick. Um, yeah, Wixie's gone back this preseason.
Hmm.
That's interesting. And by what we hear, he's doing a really good job down there getting really spoken up by the coaches, doing a good job. So that's a huge thing. And, you look at the likes of some of our older players like Jake Lloyd and Foxy, they've both got roles to play. But
Right, right.
James Jordan, too, he's been killing it this preseason. He's probably going to be one to get locked away as well. So there is a few there. You're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna we'll see if they maybe they put in that cost of living allowance for you guys again. It's not gonna happen, but
They're
it's
not going to happen, but
so
yeah, we
are
can dream.
you we're a couple years away from what is likely to be when the new club comes in Tasmania. Um, and I don't know, I know that there's gonna be a lot of draft concessions. So, it's almost as though, the clubs want to start filling up their lists with as many quality players as they can before 2028 because they know that a lot of them are not going to be available to you to them, because, Tasmania is going to be getting, a significant number of extra picks to fill out their list. Um, so it's interesting that I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there, and I don't know if they'll do any sort of like an expansion draft where a team is allowed to protect X amount of players on their list, and then if Tasmania comes in and picks player one off of Sydney's list, and they get to like protect two more players on the list and pull two players' names back. So they so Tasmania couldn't come in necessarily and take like five players off of one club's list that they really really liked. They'd have to go shopping in every aisle of the grocery store, if you will,
Yeah.
and fill up their trolley that way. So it's going to be kind of fun just to see what happens with that. But then, of course, the inevitability is going to be, where do they put the 20th club? Because you're going to have one, or you're going to have to, roll two clubs into one, which, could possibly, I guess, happen. So, the start of your season this year, I mean, you got an opportunity to really get a good start this year. You got Melbourne, who's a bit of an enigma this year. Yeah, Collingwood, who should be better. I still wonder how Collingwood's going to score enough points. I'm not very enamored by their forward structure in terms of them being able to put points on the board. And you got Essendon, Richmond, and Gold Coast. I'm sorry, and West Coast. So you theoretically could start out the year at least 4-1, maybe even 5-0.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we got Hawthorn in opening round as well. We've got every chance to get a good start, and that's really important to setting up
Yeah.
your season.
Oh, you're
But
right. I did. Oh, what the hell did I do? I didn't update that. I read okay, I'm on the whole. I'm still in last year's. Okay, my apologies
yeah,
there. I thought I
no,
put
but
the new.
it's pretty
Yeah,
similar.
you got the Hawks and the Lions, and then Frio, then the Roos, and then the Magpies. So okay, maybe not 5-0, but you certainly could win all of them. But got a
Yeah,
couple of big ones at the SCG. You got Hawthorn and Brisbane coming to the SCG, so that's good.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It'd be good to get that monkey off the back early,
yeah,
knock off the Lions, and
yeah,
set your season up that way. I'm sure they'll have that circled in the book, that's for sure. But you sort of heard we had a members event down here in Melbourne. What was it, last Wednesday, and they had Coxie talking, and they've got the two practice games circled and ready to really hit the ground running for that
hmm
opening round. And I'm sure that the Brisbane game will have a big focus too. But the old standard line, one game at a time, get yourself ready, and
there you go.
you can't look too far forward ahead. But every chance to get things going. Hopefully, we start to play Coxie's way, and he's going to have his take and his game plans, and could
hmm
take a little while to settle in. But hopefully, the ball gets rolling early, and we can bank 4 points in those first couple of games.
And you've got two trips to Perth this year too. So I mean, you get to do a little bit of traveling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
So
always do that as an interstate team.
yeah,
You're always
yeah,
getting around. I don't think that it really brings the group together. I think, be it traveling every second week, even if it is just down to Melbourne, it's only an hour trip.
right.
Yeah, you look at the teams. Like Freo and West Coast who travel across the country every second week.
Yeah,
It's amazing
yeah.
what they do, but it's interesting, that's for sure.
So who do you see pushing their way into the club's 22 or 23, I guess, that are not. there now? Who has not been a regular? Who do you think is going to be getting to the point? And as I've been describing it, that they're getting their name written on their magnet in ink rather than in pencil.
Yeah, I think the two I mentioned before, Angus Sheldrick, I think
Hmm.
that's a huge one. It's going to be a huge year for him. Our contested ball numbers aren't the best in the competition. We know we can move the ball really swiftly. And if we can just even up that midfield contest a little bit, that'll see us be a lot more successful, I think. He'll be one trying to get into that midfield too. And I think another one that hasn't been spoken about really in the mainstream media, which just doesn't happen with Sydney Craig. We just don't get the coverage, and that's why you tune into our podcast. But
There you go.
uh, you've got an all-Australian midfielder who hardly played last year in Callum Mills, the captain of the club. He's set himself up for a really big year, and I think he changes the way we look. If we've got a fit and firing Callum Mills,
Hmm.
best two-way mid in the comp, in my opinion, when he's up and running, all Australian in 22. He changes the dynamics of our side and lets some other guys off the chain a little bit. It'll allow Chad to go forward a little bit. You may see even Errol go in and be that contested midfielder. We know he's damaging by foot, but he's a bull in there as well. I think that's an underrated part of his game. But they're the two that I will, who weren't in that 22 last year, who'll be able to come in and make a difference.
Okay. Um, what bold prediction do you have about the club this year, and then about some aspect of the league in general? So what are the two things that you want to plant your flag that people are going to go, whoa, I don't know about that, but you might be right.
Oh, well, I think if you look at the Swans,
Hmm.
I think we go again and we finish on top, minor premiers, and hopefully we can put it all together in September. I honestly believe that we can do it.
Okay.
I don't think last year will have too much of an impact on the belief of this group. So hopefully we can go again. And the other one for the rest of the competition will be that Melbourne really struggle again. They're an aging list. They've got these
Yeah.
players, and it all starts at board level. We've seen the success of the Swans, and how stable they are at the top, all the way from the board through to the boot keeper. It's all about stability, and that's what Melbourne don't have. And you see it all the time, things popping up at Melbourne. So I think they'll really struggle again, even if their best players do seem to be a bit more fit this year. I don't see Melbourne doing too much damage.
Okay. And what's the headline in the paper this year at the end of the Swan season, whatever round that happens to be, if it's, if the wheels fall off and it's the end of round 24, if it's a prelim, if it's, the grand final, what is the headline in the paper that day then?
It'll be about round 13 or 14, and the Chad re-signs and stays at Sydney.
Okay.
That would be one that I'd love to see. Oh, I don't know whether it happens, but I'd love to see it.
So do you think that they'll be working on his contract during the season then?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%. I think
Okay.
I think if we get to the end of the year and he hasn't re-signed, I think he's as good as gone. But hopefully he just believes in this group and wants to win a flag and be part of a successful club. That's what we've got our fingers crossed for.
Okay. All righty. So are you ready for a little bit of Swans trivia before we wrap things up for
Yeah, I
this
remember
evening?
this last year. I remember
Okay.
this last year. So hopefully I'll go all right.
Okay.
We'll see
Well,
how we go.
you know what? I think I selected the easiest questions that I could find for you here. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
that'll make it look
Okay.
worse if I don't know him.
Okay. So, um, the person that was sitting in section 47, row 3, seat number 2, what color shoes were they wearing during round 6? No, I'm kidding. Uh, so these 5 players for the club, they all played at least 24 games. They all averaged at least 20 disposals last year.
24 games. All right, so we'll go Chad Warner.
Yep.
We will go averaging 20. Isaac Heaney.
Yep.
We will go Nick Blakey. Maybe didn't
Yep.
average 20. He
Yeah,
did.
you did.
So there we go. We got the three All Australians. Oh, Errol Goulden.
Yep.
So
You got
is that
one, you got
four?
one more. You got one more.
Jake Lloyd.
Nope.
Nope. 20,
It's
20
somebody
possession.
it's somebody we have not spoken about tonight. His name has not come up yet.
Sure. 20, 20 possessions.
Mm-hmm.
That is really, really consistent. 24 games. It's going to
Yeah.
be really
He played
obvious.
at least 24 games. Yep.
Yeah. I've gone blank, Craig. I haven't got it for you.
A defender.
Defender. I said Jake Lloyd. Matt Roberts. He
Ollie
didn't order
Florent. Ollie Florent.
Florent. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a consistent. Yeah, Ollie's one who sort of really he has some stunning games and then goes missing a little bit
Hmm.
too. But 20 possessions, that's pretty consistent. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, there you go. 4 out of 5. I'll take that. Not too bad.
There you go. Okay. These three players all had more than 100 tackles for the club last year.
Yes. 100 tackles. You got row bottom, of
Yep.
course. Grundy.
Yeah. That's the one I wasn't thinking you were going to get. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one I thought you would not get. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, who's another bull inside? Um, see, it's always the last one. It's always the last one. Uh, I don't think Heaney would have had enough tackles.
Yes, he did.
N- He did. Let's
He did.
go.
Yeah.
Three for
He did.
three.
Yeah. There you go. There
Let's
you go.
go.
Now, this player who played in 15 games last year led the club with 7.31 percenters per game.
We'll go with Tommy McCartan.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. It's all right. So other than Ollie Florence, you're crushing this so far. Okay. So these two players led the club spending more than 90% time on ground in the games they played.
Yeah. Errol Goulden would be
Uh-huh.
one.
Yep.
Um, 90%. Who's not coming off?
And we have mentioned him already.
I'd say maybe Rampy.
Nope.
No. 90%. That's a. I feel like it would be a defender, but nah, I'm not sure, Craig.
It is a defender. It is a
Melican?
defender. A
Melican?
Geelong Falcon defender.
Geelong Falcon.
Yep.
Nah. I've gone blank.
Tommy McCartan again.
Tommy McCartan again. There
Yep.
you go.
Yep.
Yeah, true. Should have gone with it.
Yep. Okay. Now these last three are a little tougher. Okay. Who kicked more goals in their career for the Swans? They're for the Swans, okay?
Yep.
The gentleman over your right shoulder,
Yes. Big
okay?
Goodsy.
Barry Hall or Tony Lockett.
Um, I'll nearly have. Jeez.
This is a
That is
tough one
really
because
tough.
they're all very close.
Close, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm I'm gonna go with Barry Hall.
You're right.
Yeah,
467. Adam Goods 464 and Tony Lockett 462. Yeah.
yeah. There you go.
Good job. Good job. Okay. Two questions left. Alrighty. In their history, have the Swans won more games at the Adelaide Oval or at the Gabba?
Ooh, I would have to say the Adelaide Oval. That would be my guess.
You would think so simply because there's two teams that play there, but it's actually
Yeah,
the Gabba.
the Gabba.
Okay.
So yeah,
Eight
Brisbane were pretty dominant up there. That's what I that's the theory I took. But
Yeah.
anyway,
the Adelaide Oval, 8 wins and six losses, and the GABA, 12 wins and 14 losses. Now, I need to ask a question here because I think this question might have been skewed a little bit, but wasn't Brisbane one of the hubs during COVID?
Yeah, there you go. That's
So
yes, it
that's
was.
where you would have
Yeah.
gotten that's where you would have gotten the extra games up there then. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I was right in the theory that,
Yeah.
the winning percentage is better over in Adelaide. That was my
Yep. There
theory.
you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. These four players are the only ones to have played 300 or more games for the Sydney Swans.
Oh, I'm so bad at this. For the Swans, 300 games. Jeez. I've had a blank here. Who's played 300? So Goodsy's played 300.
372. Yep.
Um,
The next two on the list both played 325.
325. Oh, this is bad from me. Um, just trying to think of club legends. No, I'm gonna have to be led to water here, Craig. I've had a real blank.
Okay. Um, well, let me go back to that right tab there. Okay, so one of the 325s was Jude Bolton.
Yes.
Another one, Jared McVeigh.
Yeah, I was gonna go with McVeigh. That was, yeah, I was thinking him.
And
I wasn't sure.
the fourth one had 303 games.
303.
Mm, yep.
Nah. I've
And
got
an apostrophe.
oh, an apostrophe.
Uh-huh.
So I was gonna go with Roberts Thompson, but I know he didn't play 300. That's the only apostrophe I can think of. But nah, no good.
Michael O'Loughlin.
O'Loughlin. Yeah, Mickey O.
Yeah, O'Loughlin, yeah.
I didn't think he played 300 either. Well, there you go. I've got to brush up on the old games
Yeah, it said
history.
I'm looking at where's the games here.
Well,
Okay, yeah.
so
Yeah,
he's the leading goal kicker of all time too.
between
For the Swans.
95 and 2009. Yep. And he kicked yeah, he actually in Sydney, yes.
Yeah.
But with the South Melbourne Swans, Bob Pratt has 681.
Bob
Yeah.
Pratt would have played for other clubs too, wouldn't he? I don't
Well,
even know.
those are just I think those are just the years that he was with um the let me find him here again now. I think those are just the years that he was with the um with the Swans there because there was a gap there where of course he was gone during the war.
Yeah.
Um so let's see here. Bob Pratt. I need the one born in 1912. Yeah, he played his entire career with South Melbourne,
Oh, there you go.
30 through 39, and then he came back in 46. Now, he kicked 681 goals in 158 games.
Yeah, sure. Must be
That's
yes. You must be right. Sydney
yeah.
Swans. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have counted him because because he was in South Melbourne for that one. So I
Yep.
would not have asked you about that one there. He only played 158. So, before we wrap up here, if you got the new season up and running again, if you got new episodes coming out now, and where can people find the True Bloods podcast and what can they expect this year?
Yeah, we're looking to level up again this year. We'll be back with an episode late next week, if not the week after.
Okay.
We've got a big guest lined up. I won't say who it is yet,
Okay.
but we looking to kick off the season in style. But you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all your good podcast providers,
Okay.
and on your socials at True Bloods Podcast, on your Instagrams, Facebooks, over on X as well. We try to do a few TikToks and stuff like that as well. So all over your social media as well.
Okay, fantastic. So, I do want to wish you the best this year. And the Swans are a class organization. They're a lot of fun to watch play the game because they play it hard, they play it fast. Um, yeah, I could see them absolutely finishing top of the ladder again. And if everybody stays healthy in the forward line, it's as you said, if Amarty gets a little fatigued, maybe he slows down a bit. And, of course, we're looking for, young Mr. McDonald to come back around and hopefully get healthy for you guys. Hopefully he's not out more than maybe the first game or two and then is able to go the last 22 or so before the season wraps up. But I think it should be an exciting season. And I certainly could see you guys winning the whole darn thing. But of course, you never know what's going to happen. And the one thing I guess I didn't ask you, who do you think could be dropping out of the eight this year that was there last year? That's the one thing I forgot to ask you.
Yeah, I think the Hawks possibly. I think they might
Okay.
get worked out a little bit. They're a bit of an enigma, I reckon.
Okay.
There's a lot of talk, and the way the young guys are going out about it, which I love to see. It's entertaining. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but I
Yeah.
think they might be worked out a little bit and may drop out of the eight.
Are they over Ginnivan things a little bit?
Yeah, they're little. Look, I love that stuff. It's
Yeah.
entertaining.
Yeah.
You got the wizard. You've got Ginnivan and playing up, and
Yeah.
it's great to see. It's great theatre. I
Right.
don't begrudge it at all. I love it.
Right. I
But
mean, as a cat
um,
supporter,
yeah,
I think it's going to be great to see Bailey Smith down there this year.
yeah, for
And
sure.
I don't know how they do it, but everybody keeps talking about how well maybe Matt Rowell is going to be heading south next year.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how that works. But I'm sure they'll have to put a little extra seasoning on the grass for him. Um,
yeah.
he likes,
That'll entice him down
yeah.
there.
Well, and the funny thing is that I remember there was a guy who played baseball here in the States back in the 1970s, and his goal in his career, and he played in both the American League and the National League, if I'm not mistaken. His goal, and I'm just going to put it out there, um, was he wanted to urinate on every field in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there were a lot of them that had like the artificial turf. So you got to wonder where that's going. I guess the rain percolates through it, but it's just, yeah, yeah, not a real good thing. But I remember he played for the Toronto Blue Jays for many, many years. So Deebs, on that really awful story, um, I will bid you adieu for today, sir. I want to thank you so much for carving time out of your morning to sit down and chat with me. It's been a very trying day for me here, and being able to sit down with you and the guys from the Big Footy Tiger Cast that I sat down with earlier tonight is absolutely the thing that I needed today. Um, so I can't thank you enough for taking time to sit down and chat with me. And I wish you all the best. I wish your club success. I hope Chad Warner signs a new contract for you. Um, and cheers to you, sir.
Good on you, Craig. Yeah, sending love to you and the family, mate. Tough time, but best of luck to your cats. My mum's a cat supporter, so I
She
don't
so,
mind seeing you guys go well.
she
So
sounds
yeah,
like she sounds like a wonderful lady. And that's and
she is
that's all
a
I know about her. All moms are, so that's great. So now,
very
now
good.
are
But yeah,
are are
best of
you
luck for the year, mate.
are you? And I guess are you Melbourne based?
Yeah, so I'm Melbourne-based
Okay,
Sydney supporter.
okay,
So
okay, okay. So I guess I hadn't really made that connection. You kind of hinted at that a moment ago, and I didn't really pick up on that. But okay, it makes a little bit more sense there then. So
yeah, that's it.
fantastic. Well, Deebs, thanks so very much again, sir, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow. Who you got winning?
Oh, you got to go with the Chiefs and Mahomes. I
Yeah,
think can't go past
yeah.
them.
Well, here's the funny thing. I'm not even watching it.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't.
I won't be either. I'll be working.
Yeah, I won't be watching it. I'll be working on editing episodes of my podcast and folding laundry. So
That's it.
cheers to you, sir. Yepper.
Good on you, Craig. Cheers,
Thanks.
mate.
Uh-huh. You bet. Bye-bye. All right, Deebs. Hey, thanks so very much for sitting down to chat, sir. Absolutely a pleasure to sit and talk with you again about your Swans. I think they're going to have a very good year. I know I've alluded to it in a couple of other episodes that I thought this might be a club that might slide back a little bit just because of the hangover from the grand finals. But you know what? You convinced me to maybe reassess that because this is a really, really dynamite side here. Okay. Now, folks, remember you can find everything about the podcast over at my website at ayankonthefooty.com. I hope you'll subscribe. If you enjoy the show, I hope you'll leave a review. Tell your friends and family about this crazy American who loves your game and appreciates the heck out of you sharing it with me as well. Um, get subscribed there again. If you want to help out the podcast, you can also click on that Buy Me a Coffee button or my Redbubble store page. Maybe pick up a sticker for the back of your car or your computer case, that sort of thing. It'd be a huge help for the show. A review would be absolutely awesome, though. That would be the best thing. If you could take a couple minutes and do that if you enjoy the show, that would be terrific. I would truly, truly appreciate that. So, folks, don't forget to give me a follow on all my socials as well. If you want to reach out by email, you can do that at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com as well. I do most of my online stuff with the podcast on either X or on Facebook. I'm on Instagram occasionally, LinkedIn as well occasionally. I do hope you'll head over to YouTube and subscribe for the podcast there as well. So you can see this mug if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble right now. Folks, if you feel like you need to talk to somebody because you're having a tough time, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm not going to rehash this in the Swans episode, but I mentioned it in the Tigers preview. I recorded both of these on the same day. It's been a very trying time for myself, my wife, and our children with the passing, unfortunately, of our younger of our two dogs, our 10-year-old Wheaton Terrier. We still have an almost 17-year-old Wheaton who is like the Energizer Bunny. Just he went far too quick. We had determined that earlier today we were going to take him to the veterinarian's office because of his health issues. And he just was not getting better, but he took a really, really hard turn last night and he was gone in just a matter of a couple of hours. So, but if you need to talk to somebody, please reach out. Go have that coffee with them. Tell them you love them. Tell them if you need to help. Okay. Those numbers are in the show notes of every episode of this podcast. Don't hesitate to use them because the world is a significantly much better place with you in it. Okay. Now, folks, look out for one another. As I said, check up on your friends. And as always, may your dribble kick never hit the post. I will catch you later. And this has been episode 372 of A Yank on the Footy. Don't forget you can reach me at yank_on over on X, ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Rumble. Those links are all on my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I do hope you'll head over there and get subscribed. And ladies and gents, until next time, cheers and goodbye. And if I did not say it already, may your dribble kick never hit the post. And this has been episode 372. Bye-bye.